Hi everyone, this is Sanjana again with this series where I'm bringing our students in for you. And today we have an interview which is a little different from some of the earlier ones that you've seen, because a lot of the earlier ones have been about some of our students who've taken CAT 2023 and they are just joining an IIM or other top institute, right? And I realized that, hey, why not interview someone who's one of our older students where you get a flavor of what these top B schools are like. So stay tuned. We're going to bring in some of our students who either graduated or are studying in these IIMs, and you'll get to hear from them what their experience was like. And another important thing that I want to touch about in this interview, which is with Harika, is the fact that I've heard a lot of doubts, a lot of fears about those of you who are general candidates, right? Especially when we look at the GEM or the JEF profile, the worry is that, oh, I need to get a very, very high percentile. Otherwise, I am not getting into ABC or ABCL. So can I even make it? Is CAT even worth it? Should I do something else? Right. And over the last few weeks, I have been interviewing a few people who are from this profile, and they've ended up sort of joining after their first year. Some of them had even prepared for a few months and got through. Right. But that might not always be the case. Right. And Harika is someone like that, where probably she could have got through in her first attempt. But then, one of the sections didn't really work out, and she'll tell you all about that. But she was somebody who had her mindset that, yes, I'm going to get through one of the top B schools, and that's just what she did. She's just graduated from IIM Calcutta. So hi Harika, thanks for doing this. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into this part about taking CAT more than once?
Sure. Hi, I'm Harika, and I'm a BTech in biotechnology grad. So I worked for a little bit after that. I worked at a company called Tumarek for a little bit over 2 years, and then I joined IIM Calcutta in 2022, and I recently graduated a few months ago.
Right. Now, when we speak about you getting through IIM Calcutta, so you had actually joined us for CAT 2020 prep, right? And you were that
Yeah.
time really clear that, yes, I want to get through a top IIM or XLRI, something at the top 5, top 10 level, right? So talk a little bit about how your prep was. And when you had come, I mean, you might not say it, but yeah, verbal and DILR definitely were the areas that you were already pretty strong in. Quant was probably the area where you had to work a little bit more. So how did your preparation go, and how did the CAT experience go?
Right. So as far as prep was concerned for verbal, since like you mentioned, I was already pretty confident in the
Hmm.
section. What I used to do is a lot of sectionals with you and a lot of mock centers, basically analyzing wherever I went wrong.
Hmm.
Similarly for DILR, I think it was a lot of practice, whereas for quants, I didn't have my concepts right. So I had
Hmm.
to start from scratch and go through all the concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So I focused majorly on that for the 2020 CAT.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the actual exam itself, I had the morning slot
Hmm.
and my
Just
verbal
to give
went
a
well,
little
but then,
perspective to everybody, sorry to interrupt you, just to give a little
yeah,
perspective to everyone,
yeah.
CAT 2020 was when we went from a 3-hour paper to a 2-hour paper. So we
Hmm.
all went in not knowing, I mean, we knew that it's going to be 40 minutes each, of course, but we didn't know if CAT's going to bring in any other changes. We didn't know the number of questions, and there were quite a few changes, right? So now we have 66 questions, but that year there were 76 questions. So the number of questions also, I mean, we went from 100 questions in 3 hours to 76 questions in 2 hours, which is on the higher side. And we went from 5 RCs to 4 RCs, but the number of RCs also, there were 18 questions, so that was pretty high. And then we had 6-question DILR cases and 4-question DILR cases, which again was a little different. Quant was similar because you had singlet questions. Of course, the number of questions had changed, right? So we were going in also not knowing how the exam was. Yeah, back to you.
Yeah. So the actual exam, I had the first lot, and I think verbal went well. But in DILR, I picked a 6-question case. Like you mentioned, there were cases of 6 or 4 questions each.
Mhm.
And after I had invested like about 20, I think it was 40 minutes per section
Yes.
back then.
Yeah.
And after investing about 20 minutes in that case, I still couldn't crack the answer.
Mhm.
And instead of abandoning it, I stuck with that case. And eventually I did end up solving it, but that's the only case I did that year.
Right. Right.
So because of that, my DILR score was a little low. And even quants, I think my attempts were low and my accuracy wasn't 100%. So
Right.
that
Do
was
you
the
think
mistake
it
I
had
made
an
that year.
impact? The DILR, do you think that sort of like, that mindset got carried through into quant as well?
Definitely. I think the first 10 minutes of quant, I don't think I solved more than one question because I was still thinking about DILR in the back of my head. So
Hmm.
that definitely impacted my quant as well.
Right, right. So in a sense, if you see, and this is something which happens to a lot of students who are good, right? What happened with her was she knew she was good at DILR, and she knew that she could probably, if she takes, she's saying, I've taken 20 minutes, so can I take maybe 5 or 10 more minutes and then crack this case, right? So when we are good at something, we also sometimes have this that, okay, we've taken this time, we can probably crack it. Let's just give it this shot, right?
Mhm.
And the other thing which can happen, of course, is, given that these exams happen once every year, if one section has not gone well, then that is something which you can carry through, right? And then, I mean, what happened was she still had a pretty good percentile. She still got calls. She got the cap call. So a bunch of IIMs that she had also ended up doing very well in that. But then it wasn't enough for those top 4 or top 5 IIMs that we were targeting, right? So, I mean, we obviously got the response sheet, and then the scorecard also came out in Jan. So how was your mindset at that time, and what made you decide that, no, you know what, I'm going to give it one more shot, let it take one more year, but I'm going to risk it for this dream of, the top 5 schools?
I think I always was set on getting into the top 5 or 6 B schools. That was number one. And secondly, during the time of interviews, although most of my interviews went well, I realized that there was a lot of work I had to do. Like there wasn't much that I could talk about at that point in my life. So I
Hmm.
thought, let me work more,
Mm-hmm.
let me get more work experience, let me do other things that I can talk about in my interview.
Mm-hmm.
And also working for a longer period allows you to then go for GMAT and other options as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
with that mindset, I decided to let go of the opportunities that I got that year, all the baby irons, and give CAT once again.
Right. And that's a smart thing also, right? Because, I mean, like I said, these exams happen once a year, right? And so
Hmm.
when you're sort of like saying that, okay, I'm going to give it one more year, it works out or not, it's binary. So when you are taking multiple exams, you're taking CAT, ZAT, you're taking GMAT, like, for you, you knew with 2 years of work experience, ISB becomes an option, right? So
Yeah.
then what we are also doing is we are diversifying our risk, and, then
Hmm.
it's all about, okay, I'm taking 3 exams. All I need is one exam to go well, right? So tell us about
Yeah.
your work also. It's obviously something really interesting. You are a biotechnology major and you were working in a pharmaceutical company. So how was your work? What is it that you were doing? And I remember you were doing pretty well at work. I think you got a promotion also during that time. And how did you sort of also, very important, balance work and CAT prep? Because I mean, when we're talking about going from a
Hmm.
97, 98 percentile to a 99.5 sort of percentile, which is what we need, being, a GEM or a JEF candidate, or probably even more. That is quite high, because when you are at that
Yeah.
95 to 98 or even 99, right, you're already in a good position. You're probably doing all the easy and medium questions which are there. Here, you've got to, tackle the tough questions also. You have to improve your speed as well. And you have to work on your test strategy. Like, you can't have a scenario where, okay, if one section has gone bad, you can't be wasting time, right? You've got to make sure that you pick yourself up quickly and maximize the questions in the other section. So how do you manage to tackle all of these?
Like you mentioned, I was working with a firm that was basically looking at the market research of pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because of this, in 2020, we had a lot of work, and I think managing CAT prep and work became very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I would have done differently, should have done differently in 2020, was that I used to wait till the end of the workday to then start my CAT prep,
Okay.
which is very unpredictable. So
Hmm.
what I did differently in 2021 was that I used to wake up early in the morning, get my prep out of the way, and then do my work. So that way, if my workday ended early, I could still prep more. If it
Hmm.
did not, it still wouldn't make a difference because my prep was already done.
Right.
So I think it's better to structure your day in that way where you allocate like a dedicated time of your day to CAT prep so that it's not getting consumed with your work and everything.
Right. Right.
And yeah, I used to use the weekends mostly for mocks and focus on sectionals during the week, sectionals and concepts and all of that.
What a great plan that is, right? So you are grinding it out, you're waking up early, you're preparing for a few hours and then going for work. And I think our classes are at 8:30, and I've seen you in a lot of classes as well,
Yeah,
right? So just look at it, right? She's prepping, then she has her work. Of course, work at that time was online, because it was in the midst of lockdown
yeah,
and all of that. And then again, after that, she's coming for the classes, and then again prepping over the weekends, taking a mock, analyzing it, like taking your mock is 2 hours. Analyzing it is another 2 to 4 hours because you're trying to find if there's anything that you can improve and you're prepping. So but at the end of it, it's of course it's worth it because you ended up sort of like getting your goal. So how did CAT 2021 go? What was different for you? How did you make it work, and how do you get that top percentile?
So for CAT 2021, I think what I did differently prep-wise was, like I mentioned, I got the prep done at the start of the day. So I feel like I was better prepared, and I was also more confident because the previous year CAT had gone pretty well, and I also had a decent percentile in XAT.
Hmm.
And this year I was also planning to give CAT, XAT, and GMAT as well.
Hmm.
So I was more confident, I was more relaxed, I was less focused on CAT as the only exam because I knew that XAT and GMAT were also an option. So I think I was able to give the exam with less stress. And CAT 2021, once again, I had the morning slot, similar to the previous year. And this time, when I got stuck in a DILR case, I abandoned and went to the next one. So I was able to solve more cases. That was one thing I did differently. And because DILR went well, I think quant also, I was able to maintain a pretty good accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, CAT 2021 was much better.
And that's something which has worked for you, right? In both the years in quant, accuracy is something that you focused on, and that's very important because I mean, like I am somebody where I tend to make silly mistakes. So instead of getting 3 marks, I end up getting -1. So that's a loss of 4 marks. So how do you manage that where you have near perfect accuracy?
So what I try to do is in sections like verbal, where I'm more confident, I try to finish as much as possible. So in both years, I tried to finish the entire verbal section because I knew my accuracy, although it wasn't 100%, it was always on the higher side. Whereas in sections like DILR and quant, where for me my attempts were usually on the lower side, I would take that extra minute or extra few seconds to double check my answers so that I know that even if my attempts are low, my accuracy is 100%. So I think that is how I divided it between sections that I was good at and not so good at.
Right. No, and she is being a little humble and saying that her attempts are low, but DILR, she was just about at 99, finishing 2 cases. And that's how it is, right? Typically, out of 4 cases that we have now, 1 case is usually enough to meet the sectional cutoffs, especially last 2 years when it's become harder. And 2 cases will get you anywhere from a 95 to 99. And in 21, it was a 99. And verbal, of course, yeah, like you said, you were at 50 plus marks, right? So somewhere, that the prep for taking all of those marks for verbal also worked. And I remember being, pretty proud of your verbal score, but that's something that you were really good at. So yeah, so then CAT happened, and then, by the time the XAT exam happens, of course, we already know that, you have a certain percentile and we know what are the B schools which are coming in. So then again, how did the interview prep go for you?
Right. I remember I had a very short timeline for the interview. My first interview, I think, was ISB, early Feb, and then by end of Feb, I had my IIM Calcutta interview. But because I had so much work ex at that point, luckily most of my interview questions were around that. Most of it was asking what you did at work, about, they were very curious to understand the industry also because of COVID at that time. And there were also a few questions from my undergrad. And now this prep is common for both years. So since I had already prepped for that the previous year, that helped. And luckily for me, I didn't have a lot of general knowledge or GK questions, but I did have a few math questions. Now the math questions are very similar to CAT. So I had a few questions on probability and quadratic equations and graphs and all that. Yeah, I didn't have to, because you already prepare for CAT, I didn't have to spend too much time on it, but I did go through all of the concepts roughly once before the interview.
Right. Great. Yeah. And then, of course, worked out for you. You got through IIM Calcutta and a bunch of other B schools. So I think now is the time that, the viewers are more interested in. So tell us about IIM Calcutta. How was your experience? What all did you do? What do you study? And then probably I'll ask you some more specific questions. And by the way, the specific questions are all questions which some of our students have put up because these are things that they're interested to know.
Sure. So I think the first year is common for all IIMs, I think. But at IIM Calcutta, we had 1 or 2 different subjects. One being the economic and political history of India. That was one subject I found interesting. And the second is that's unique to IIM Calcutta is something called qualifying math. So because most of our first year subjects tend to be a little math heavy at IIM Calcutta, we have a qualifying math exam. And it's pretty easy, but if you do not pass it, they still give you two more attempts, but you will have to go for then coaching after classes.
So
So I think
what are the areas that you're tested on in this?
it is pretty much a repeat of the CBSE 11th and 12th syllabus. So the
Okay, so
NCRT syllabus,
calculus and everything. So you have
yeah,
to.
proper calculus and everything, matrices, calculus, all of that.
Hmm.
So if you go through your board exam stuff, like it's the syllabus is the same, but the difficulty is not too high. Like it's a very basic level
Right.
test. So if you have the time before, I would say like for anyone going to IIM Calcutta, if you do have the time before joining, go through it because once you join, there is so much going on. You won't have too much time to prepare for this exam.
So tell us about
So
that. Like,
that is
what
two
is
things.
everything that goes on in a B school, and what would like a typical day for you be like, if there is anything like a typical day?
I think the first week was full of orientation and then classes started. And within maybe 1 week of classes starting, your summer placement prep also starts. So that's where it gets a little hectic because you're managing both your classes, tests, and placement prep. Once the placement prep, the summer placements are over for us at IIM Calcutta, it was around October, mid to end of October. Once that is over, it's a little easier because then you get to focus fully on your academics.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, until then it's a little hectic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I'll ask some of the questions that some of our current students want to know. So, of course,
Yeah.
first and most important. So, what was placements like, and give a flavor of summers as well as your final placements.
I think for most people, summers is more hectic than final placement because that's the first time you are going through the process. You don't know what to expect, and there's also a lot of fear because you're dealing with your seniors and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So for summers, the process starts very early. It starts pretty much as soon as you join, and they give you more than enough time to work on your CV, which is I think the most important part. So you take about 1 or 2 months to build your CV, collect all the proof, and then you also take 1 month of sessions. So depending on which field you're interested in, they offer prep sessions, and you have to attend them and prepare accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
For finals, it's a repeat of the same, but people are less dependent on the prep sessions at that point because most of them have gone through summers, they prep on their own.
Right.
But it is the same process, and CV making is a much shorter process because your CV is pretty much frozen in the first year. You just add your summer internship points and if any other. Now the actual placement week is 1 week, but breaks in between. So the actual days of placements are usually just 3 days. And in between, we're given day breaks to finish all of our. A lot of companies also have aptitude tests and all of that, and group discussions. So the day breaks are used for those. But most of the placement activities over usually in 3 days. So the days for us at IIM Calcutta is structured based on our preferences. So there is a form that is floated, and we all get to choose which companies we want on the first, second, and third day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
So that is how it is.
Right. And that's such a beautiful thing, right? And that is something I'll actually link to a video which I had recently posted explaining why it's great to, target the top 10 B schools. Because I mean, it's a week for you, of course, it's 3 days, right? It's a week and it's done, right? And even this year, of course,
Yeah.
for your finals, the economy wasn't as great, but still, like pretty much everybody getting placed in a week is awesome, right? Whereas as you sort of go to comparatively, slightly lower ranked IIMs or lower ranked B schools and all that 1 week can become 1 month and so on. And as you go down the chain, sometimes, it's something which lasts for 6 to 10 months even. So, and placements are, of course, a very important part, if not the most. Right? So getting that through, like you said, you get that done in October. And then, of course, it becomes like, okay, you're focusing only on your studies, you're able to chill, you're able to have fun. That's just one headache off, right? So that's again a huge advantage of the top B schools. Of course, the roles are better, the B schools that the companies that come in are better, the salaries are higher, that's there. But in my view, that getting everything done in a few days is a huge bonus, right? And now one more question which a lot of people have is that they're not sure what to specialize in, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that, how it is in the first year and how are the electives in the second year?
Sure. So in the first year, it's a common program for everybody. So all of you go through the same subjects in first year. And for second year, what a lot of people do is they use summer internship as an opportunity to test out the field that they're interested in. So for example, if you're interested in finance, You can always search for a summer internship opportunity in finance. And then by the time your internship is over, you will have an understanding of if you want to pursue finance further or no.
Mhm. Mhm.
And based on that, you can opt for second year subjects that are related to finance.
But
So
wouldn't you
for us,
choose it before? Like for us in Lucknow, we chose all of our electives at the end of the third term itself.
oh, that was not how it was for us. So it
Okay.
was at a term level.
Mhm.
So
Okay, okay, interesting.
before few weeks before the start of each term, you get to choose your subject,
Mhm.
and they also did away with majors and minors. So we're free to choose as many subjects from whatever domain that we want. So
Hmm.
that way it's very flexible, which is nice if you're indecisive. So yeah, that's how most people go about it.
Right. And what were like, some of the interesting subjects that you had?
Few of the interesting subjects that I had, I think one was a course on philosophy
Hmm.
that dived into like Indian mythology and everything, like the
Oh, that's very
Mahabharata and
interesting.
all that, and lessons in philosophy from that. So I think that is one unique subject. There are a lot of other subjects. There was one that I personally did not take, but I think it was on storytelling. So
Oh,
that
nice.
was also a very interesting subject. So there are a lot of interesting subjects to explore in second year apart from your core finance and strategy subjects and all of that.
Mhm. That sounds like fun. And what about you? So what are the subjects or what are the areas that you looked at mostly?
So I think I took full advantage of the whole flexibility thing. I took one of each. I made sure I took at least one of each subject in each term. So one economics, one finance, one marketing, which
Mm-hmm.
was nice, which was fun. So yeah, that's what I did.
Right. And also it helps in keeping your GPA up because if we end up taking a lot of like say fin courses and all of that, sometimes our
Yeah,
grades can drop a bit, right?
can
So
come down.
that's
Yeah.
that's there. And now I come to like what I think a lot of people want to know now. You've got a role in a consulting firm and that's what a lot of people want to do. So how did that process go? How do the consulting interviews go? And if someone wants to become a consultant, what is it that you would recommend they do maybe now, right? With their CAT prep and during those 2 years.
Right. So I think at the time of CAT prep, it does help to have your CAT score high
Mm.
because that is always a CV point. Like amongst
Right.
people who all have really high CAT scores, if you have maybe 100 percentile in a
Mm.
section or something, that could be a highlight. So
Mm.
that is one thing you can do. And after coming to campus, I think you can focus on a lot of case competitions and live projects, not just for consulting, but for any other field, right? Especially, for example, if you're interested in finance, maybe a live project in finance. Whereas for consulting, you could pretty much do a live project in any domain and it would be helpful. So
Mm. Mm.
live projects, winning case competitions, I think these are all good CV points. As for the process itself, I think consulting is a very long process during placement because the shortlists are given out at least a month before placement. So that consulting companies are the first companies to release shortlists, and after that you have a whole process where there are multiple company interactions. There are calls with your buddies where you sometimes have to solve those cases, guesstimates, and all of that. There are dinners sometimes that you may have to attend. So it is a very long process, and they say it is not eliminative or it is not it's not taken into consideration for the main D-Day, but it absolutely is.
Of course,
So
yeah.
based on the interactions that you have over the month, then they decide the list of preferred candidates that they would like to
Mm.
take. So on the D-Day as well, the interviews are typically case-based for consulting. Now the number of interviews that you have may vary from firm to firm, but they are most likely going to be a case-based interview. Now, consulting case is a little bit different. It's not like our DILR cases where you don't have to worry about the numbers, but it could be one of two things. It could either be a guesstimate where you're just tested on your approach to how you would arrive at an estimate, or it could be like a business scenario of some sort.
Mm.
So that could be in any industry. So there are case books that cover multiple industries that you typically prepare with. And it could be a business case where you will have to come up with ideas to bring down costs or increase profitability or growth or any something of that sort. So
Mm.
these are the two broad categories of cases that they ask you in consulting interviews.
Right. And which is why if you have a high score in DILR, I think that's something which would definitely help. So hopefully that worked for you, Harika.
Yeah.
So great. Yeah, that was great to know. And I think that's all the questions that, our students were also curious about. So now we come to one more fun part of the interview, which is the rapid fire of sorts. So your answers can be short or long, but you are sort of like not supposed to think before you answer, right? And
Okay.
it will be a little different because so far I've been asking questions to those who are just going to jump in. So we'll have to like have, so I'll have to come up with rapid fire questions for you, which will be a little different. Okay.
Okay.
So when it comes to CAT, what was your favorite section of the three?
Actually, DILR.
Okay. What was more stressful for you? The exams, the interview, or your placements at IIM Cal?
I think interview.
Okay.
Okay.
So getting into the IIM interviews.
Yeah, because it's very unpredictable. There is
Mhm.
exams, if you've prepped enough, you have some confidence that you will do well.
Okay. Okay. What is one quality that you think you need to crack the CAT exam, CAT or ZAT, whatever, and get into a top B school?
I think managing your time well, and the same goes for when you actually join the B school as well. It will help
That's
you in both scenarios.
right. That's the next thing which I was going to ask. So also let me change the next question to what is one quality that you feel a consultant should have?
I was going to say the same thing, but now I have to come up with another answer. Um, I think working with very, very strict deadlines. From what I observed during internship, you're often given very little time to do things, and you should be able to get things done very quickly.
Right, 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 right. So yeah, okay. Who have you interacted with more at Mockat, Vignesh or Sanjana?
I think beginning.
Okay, now when it comes to CAT, of course, a lot of times we are balancing work and prep, but B school is a whole different ball game, right? Because you have classes, you have competitions, you have committees, and you have placement prep and all of that. So, how did you balance your time among all of these?
Right. Like I said, in first year, I think it's about managing your time and planning ahead of time. But
Mhm,
even then, there will be some times where you will have to grind and not sleep because there may be surprise quizzes, there may be a last minute assignment. So
mhm,
be prepared to do things last minute and to compromise a little bit on sleep,
mhm.
especially in the first year.
Right, right. And can you share a study tip that worked well for you for CAT, ZAT, GMAT, anything?
I think for everything, I would say practice. Instead of spending too much time, which is what I did, I think, in the first time I gave CAT, is spending too much time on the concepts of quant. I would say practicing five sums always helps more than sitting down for 2 hours and going through the concepts again and again. So
Right,
I think practicing and then analyzing. Another important thing is analyzing wherever you've gone wrong, whether that is in a sectional or at the time of your practice or the actual mock.
right.
So these are two important.
Right. So in fact, we have quite a bit more. Like, I mean, when you were prepping, we had our practice questions and mocks and sections. Now we have something called
Mm.
speed concepts, which sort of helps to
Yeah.
bridge the gaps between knowing the concept and then actually, that getting translated into you getting high scores in the mock. So students can test if they really know the concept. So lots more practice now.
Mm.
So hopefully people hear what you're saying and take it up. Okay. What kept you motivated during rough times, right? So, and again, this can be during CAT prep or even at IM CAT.
So I think one thing I had in mind is most people do their MBA only once, and for most people, this is the last academic degree of their life. So you
Hmm.
might as well give it time and put in the effort and do it from your dream B school.
Right.
So that is why I didn't want to compromise throughout this whole journey.
Right, right. No, and that makes so much sense, right? I mean, we've been speaking about you taking one more year. What a lot of people don't realize is, hey, so say if you had, gone to one of the CAP IIMs and forget you, right? So anybody is getting into, say, an IIM Udaipur or a Ranchi, and you're starting out at that 17, 18 lakhs, right? Versus you are getting through an IIM Calcutta and you're starting at that 34, 35 lakhs, which is literally double, right? Now, no one's doubling their salary in 1 year, right? So but here, by taking
Yeah.
that one extra year of prep and getting into a top B school, you get a much higher salary. You get far more respect because you've cracked it and you've got through. And on top of it, of course, you will have different roles. Certain companies which say, "Hey, I only want to go to ABC," or "I only want to go to the top 5, top 10." So there's a lot more, of course, which is there. So yeah, I totally agree. That is something which definitely helps. Now, how did you celebrate after you cleared your placements, final placements?
I think there is one common party that happens in IIM Calcutta. Every time there's a placement week, we have a party at the end of the week for the entire
Mhm.
campus.
Mhm.
So I just, yeah, attended that. I couldn't attend it for my finals, but for summers, yeah, that's
Okay,
what it is.
sounds good. Great. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Harika. I think this would be really helpful. And I think for students who are aspiring to get through the top B schools, hearing about IIM Calcutta from you is something which would be very motivating. And this is the right time, right? For those of you who are preparing for CAT 2024. Hopefully, her journey has motivated you to step up your prep and really crack that top B school.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I had a lot of fun discussing, and to everyone watching, I think if they're giving CAT, all the very best, and I hope you get the dream school of yourself. All the best for CAT 2024.
All the best for CAT 2024.